I'm going to show you 10 PS5 games that will impress you right now in 2021. Rather than coming up with some witty or clever remark on how difficult it is to find PlayStation 5 consoles, I'm just going to get right into the video. Number 10. Doom Eternal. I feel like if God of War ever became a first-person shooter, then this is what it would probably be like. If you thought the previous game was violent, then you haven't seen anything yet. If I had to make a comparison, the last game almost felt cartoony. Enemies now have a more realistic way of dying, you could say. Like, you could see the damage that's inflicted after each subsequent hit. It's violent, but really cool at the same time. The glory kills from the first game makes a return, and boy do they look spectacular. More outrageous and over the top than you can imagine. I get such an adrenaline boost when I do them too, and no matter how many times I see it, it never gets old. The thing that amazes me about this game is just how it's able to keep you entertained for long stretches. You'd think it would get repetitive with the constant shooting, but you'd be surprised. There just seems to be a perfect balance of all the gameplay elements. You're shooting 1 second, performing a glory kill the next, and then jumping, and then switching weapons, and then back to shooting. It's like addictive. Not only that, but everything you do makes you feel like a badass. Even picking up a weapon makes you feel like a badass. There's a bunch of them to discover, each one with various upgrades, which makes hunting down monsters that much more fun. I'm not even the biggest Doom fan, but even I have to admit, this game is freaking awesome. Given the next-gen treatment, you can expect to see improved visuals, increased performance, as well as support for ray tracing, which does support 60 FPS. There were some minor dips here and there, but not enough for me to turn off this feature. Plus, it runs at a sweet 1800p. If you're concerned with pixel count, there's a graphics mode that runs the game in 4K 60 FPS. And for those who can afford it, there's also a 120 FPS mode. The game would have been perfect if it wasn't for one minor annoyance. Upon starting the game, you're required to log in by creating a Bethesda account, if you don't already have one. I mean, you could just disconnect from the internet to bypass making the account, but I shouldn't have to do that. I know, real world problems. Number 9. Returnal, a third-person roguelike shooter released exclusively for PlayStation 5. You play as a space pilot who's stranded on an alien planet. Gameplay consists mainly of you running around shooting what I assume are aliens, collecting power-ups, and listening to audio files detailing the events that happened prior. The story is interesting and very well told. It's kind of like those movies where the main character has amnesia, but slowly begins to recover their memory as they interact with things around them. Now, because this is a PS5 exclusive, developers have taken full advantage of the system hardware. Advanced haptic feedback support, 3D spatial audio, real-time ray tracing, reduced load times, as well as other visual effects within the game. The thing I love most about Returnal is just how well it captures the feeling of being lost on an alien planet. Ominous-looking structures, weird moving vegetation, even the rain gives off a creepy and unfamiliar vibe. The tone and atmosphere is spot on. The gunplay is equally amazing. Each firearm has its own style and unique way of handling. It's exciting when you come across a new weapon and can't wait to see what the second alternative fire looks like. There is, however, one minor complaint I have with the game. The roguelike nature of Returnal is hard to look past. Gamers new to this style of gameplay may be turned off. Each time you die, you start back from the very beginning. I know it's the way the game was designed, but for me, it's hard to get invested in a game where I know all my progress is lost upon death. Fortunately, this concept has been expertly woven into the story, which I think works very well. Number 8. Hitman 3. If you've been following the Hitman franchise up to this point, you'll know the great thing about it is the freedom and flexibility to tackle mission objectives any way and in any order you want. It's this open-ended approach that I find Hitman 3 so appealing. Granted, you can't exactly go in and do whatever you want, but you do get more leeway in how much or little you have to do. Agent 47 is back, and he's better than ever. You can snap people's necks or throw them off a ledge. You can also do combinations, like snapping their neck and then throwing them off a ledge. My favorite is to simply just kick them off the ledge when they least expect it. There's also environmental hazards scattered throughout. If you're new to the Hitman games, then you will be overwhelmed at first. The game is massive. Levels are gigantic, and you constantly need to be aware of what's happening around you. There's a map, but even that can get a little confusing. It's one of those games where you really gotta take your time and get to know your surroundings. It might even require thinking outside the box every so often. Visually, the game starts off with one of the most breathtaking scenes ever. I can honestly say that I've never seen anything like it before. Environmental lighting and level design is of the highest caliber. I was constantly amazed every time I came across a new area. I was just like, wow, this looks amazing. And what makes it believable is that there's so much life and movement happening around you. Nothing feels lifeless or static. And just when you thought it couldn't look any better, the game surprises you even further in the later missions. If you happen to get lost, at least you'll be lost in one of the best looking games around. There's also a great story hidden behind all the killing, if you've got time to pause and listen. Number 7. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I'm just gonna tell you guys right off the bat, I'm not exactly the biggest Star Wars fan. I've seen some of the movies and I enjoyed them for the most part, but if you ask me what makes them so great, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. If memory serves me right, I think the last Star Wars game I played was the fighting one, where you got to play as Darth Vader. What was it? Star Wars Hyper Fighting Retribution? Does that sound right? Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is nothing like that. It's an action-adventure game developed by Respawn Entertainment. Played from a third-person perspective, it uses the Metroidvania style of exploration and progression. Of course, you would never be able to tell that when playing through the opening sequence. The game does a good job of getting you up to speed with your Jedi powers. Time manipulation and the ability to wield a lightsaber has never looked so cool. What's even better, you get to customize it later on in the game. Fighting with a lightsaber alone is worth picking up this game. Deflecting enemy blasters and chopping off limbs is simply awesome. Running on the PS5, you can expect a smooth 60 FPS experience, although there were a few minor dips. As a whole, the game looks beautiful. Great looking action set pieces and wonderful atmospheric lighting throughout. By the way, is that Deborah Wilson from Mad TV? The game gets heavy with exploration later on, but luckily the story is engaging enough to keep you playing. There's a skill tree where you can learn new attacks as well as discover abilities you can use to access new areas. There's a multitude of difficulty settings to choose from, so just about anyone can have a good time and not get frustrated. With such high production values, it's hard not to recommend this game whether you're a fan of Star Wars or not. And if you're a fan, let me know with a thumbs up. Ha, see what I did there? Number 6. Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. You guys probably don't know this, but this game actually got a next-gen upgrade a few months back. Bumped up to a near 4K resolution. I have to say near because I know there's going to be that one prick in the comments telling me it's not exactly 2160p. And they'd be right. Pixel count is closer to 2088p. There, you happy? Along with the increased resolution, the game now runs at a locked 60 FPS. But wait, there's more. Visuals receive a bump in quality with improved detail, reduced loading times, and 3D audio capabilities when using headphones. Did I miss anything? Oh yeah, adaptive triggers have also been added when using certain gadgets. What was already an amazing game has only gotten better. As a huge Crash Bandicoot fan, I was overwhelmed with complete joy as I was playing this game. The care and attention put into this title shows the developers truly understand the franchise and what makes it great. Everything from the way Crash runs to his mannerisms have been faithfully brought over from the PS1 games. If you've played the previous game, then Crash Bandicoot 4 feels like a natural progression, retaining a lot of the familiar gameplay elements you've come to know and love, but with a more modern take. It's familiar, but also new at the same time. One thing I wasn't expecting was the sheer difficulty. This game will kick your ass, but not in an unfair kind of way. It's challenging, but fun, which is what kept me coming back for more. I think my favorite part about the game has to be the boss battles. For lack of a better word, they're just really cool. Like, really well done and well executed. I always look forward to seeing how these would unfold, and they never disappoint. This game is so amazing, like I don't know if Naughty Dog could have done a better job themselves. Number 5. Scarlet Nexus. You ever have one of those games where even before you play it, you already know you're gonna like it? This is one of those games. Action role-playing never looked so good. And since I'm talking about looks, let's just get that one out of the way first. Scarlet Nexus is a beautiful game. Characters are wonderfully illustrated and environments are highly detailed. Overall, everything just has a very clean look. The fact that you can see so much of the sky gives off a sense that you've just been dropped into a virtual world. The thing that caught my attention immediately was the look of the city. It looks sort of like a futuristic Tokyo, almost like Akira if it wasn't so dirty. There's the usual assortment of shops you'd normally find, but the way it's represented is really interesting. Streets are blocked off by invisible barriers, and there's weird floating symbols that randomly appear. Like, are we inside a computer program? If you're tired of the way games have been looking lately, then Scarlet Nexus is definitely a breath of fresh air. The game is played from a third-person perspective. You fight using short-range weapons, in addition to psychokinesis. After a physical attack, you can use your psychokinesis to hurl objects at hostile enemies. The fun part is when you start figuring out how to chain these attacks together, creating an endless loop of psychokinesis and rushdown attacks. Also, later on, you're accompanied by different party members that offer support with unique combat abilities. For example, one party member allows you to infuse your attacks with a fire element, thus allowing you to deal more damage. The way the characters move in combat reminds me a lot of Nier Automata, with its fluid action and speedy gameplay. Very fun and very stylistic. There's a lot happening on screen, but you always feel like you're in control. The game starts off with a great tutorial that teaches you the commands, so combat becomes second nature very early on. Give it a shot if you're still on the fence. It's really good. Number 4. Judgement. A spin-off to the Yakuza series, Judgement plays like an action-adventure game where you fight thugs, chase down suspects, and search for clues. Oh, there's a little bit of stealth in there too. You know what this game reminds me of? Sleeping Dogs. Remember that game? You play as Takayuki Yagami, a detective running around the fictional Tokyo district of Kamamocho, trying to figure out who's responsible for the murders taking place. Along the way, you're free to explore the beautiful city. You've got neon lights, restaurants, bars. There's even the Club Sega arcade building, which you can play full versions of Virtua Fighter 2 and Fighting Vipers. That bridge level still looks amazing after all these years. My favorite part about exploring the city is just stumbling upon a random conversation someone is having on the phone as you walk by them. It really makes the city come alive. When you're not beating up street thugs, you're either investigating clues or engaging in conversation involving the murder case. The gameplay is varied enough where you never feel like you're doing the same thing for too long. Combat feels great as well. It's simple in its execution, but allows for customization as you're given the choice to upgrade various abilities. I didn't think much of this game when I first heard about it. Thought it was one of those quick cash grabs, but to be honest, after playing this, I can say I might like it more than the main Yakuza series. I know, old statement. You can leave the angry comments below. It's a fun and addictive open-world action-adventure game that should not be missed. Yakuza fans and people who like good games in general should definitely give Judgement a try. Plus, it'll get you ready for the sequel that's about to drop in a few weeks. Number 3. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Insomniac Games brings back a lot of what you love about the franchise. Fun, addictive gameplay, crazy, outlandish weapons, and beautiful graphics. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is one of the best looking PS5 games to date. If you thought the previous game looked good on PS4, then you haven't seen anything yet. Big, colorful explosions, amazing action set pieces, and bright, beautiful scenery. A perfect showcase for the new PlayStation 5 hardware. If you're not sure what graphical mode to play in, may I suggest ray tracing performance. Others might disagree and argue that there's too big of a drop in resolution, but when the game's in motion, you can hardly tell. There was a recent update that allowed for owners with a 120Hz TV to play in 4K with ray tracing enabled in 40 FPS, which I heard was pretty smooth. But regardless of whatever mode you play in, the game is still gorgeous to look at. Past Ratchet & Clank titles have gotten to the point of Pixar quality graphics, but I think Rift Apart is where the story and narrative have finally reached the standards set forth by animated movies. Not only is it fun to play, it's also fun to watch. It's the kind of game that when you start playing, you're reminded of why you play games in the first place. You might find something that's just as good on competing hardware, but I doubt you'll find anything better. Number 2. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Upgraded for next gen with a whole host of improvements. Faster load times, better textures, and various system enhancements have been reworked into the PS5 release. The first thing you'll notice right off the bat is visual clarity. Intergrade looks a hell of a lot sharper on Sony's next-gen console. Not only that, but the addition of fog, volumetric lighting, and bloom help elevate the graphics even more. These are all nice visual improvements, but I think the most important upgrade of all is the 60 FPS performance mode. What was already a gorgeous-looking game is made even better with a higher frame rate. As more games continue to get a performance boost, I find it harder and harder to go back to 30 FPS. In addition to the performance boost, Square Enix incorporated adaptive trigger support for the PS5's DualSense controller. All these new graphical enhancements are great, but how's the actual game, you might ask? In one word, a masterpiece. No, just kidding. But it's really good. I can't say masterpiece because I know someone is going to have a heart attack in the comments below. If you're a fan of the original, then you'll absolutely love the remake. The game looks amazing, and being able to see everything remade with modern technology just makes you nostalgic for some reason. There were so many moments I remember from the original, and some that were completely unrecognizable. Some story elements have been extended, some were added, and some even taken out. But for the most part, I was very pleased with the remake. I was also very impressed with how they incorporated Sephiroth early on in the game. Spoiler alert, right after you blow up the reactor, you start seeing random hallucinations. It's just really cool. The whole thing gives off a very Advent Children kind of vibe. FF7 Remake was great on the PS4, but I think it's best played on the PS5. The smoother frame rate is just too good to pass up. Number 1. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. I don't think this game needs any introduction. You played it on the PS4 and now it's been upgraded for next gen. Bumped up to a full 4K resolution running at a locked 60 FPS. Ghost of Tsushima on PlayStation 5 looks phenomenal. Along with the resolution bump, you can expect a few quality of life changes as well. Loading has now been reduced to practically nothing. There's an option to increase the gust of wind, making it easier to see what direction you have to go in. Enemy target lock has been added, as well as haptic and adaptive trigger support for the DualSense. Cutscenes are now rendered in real time, along with proper lip sync while using Japanese audio. In addition, you also get the Iki Island expansion all on one disc. If there's one title on this list that will impress you on PlayStation 5, then it's definitely Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. Everything about this game is just so good. From the gorgeous visuals right down to the combat system, there isn't one area of the game that doesn't impress. What I like most about the game is that you never feel overwhelmed with things to do. Like most open world games, as soon as you open the menu, you're bombarded with a million objectives. Deciding which mission to choose seems almost like a chore, to be honest. Ghost of Tsushima doesn't do that. The open world map is clean, uncluttered, and easy to understand. It offers just the right amount of information at exactly the right time. It's fun, it's engaging, and it doesn't stress you out. Oh, and assassination kills completely put the AC franchise to shame. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is one of the most fun and addictive games I've played in a long time. Now, if you want to know what other games are worth playing on the PS5, then check out the videos on the screen right now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.